Hello everyone, Just Podcast TV is here. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified on new contents.
Episode 266. Mind your own business. However, after Quincy scolded him for being an idiot, he couldn't say anything else. It wasn't because he was feeling well or anything else. It was because he recalled the bloody events of the past. Thinking about it, he had used all kinds of methods back then, and that was why 2 of them had died. 2 of them were crippled, and 2 of them had disappeared. However, at that time, there was nothing he could do. He felt that he went to an ancient battlefield. He didn't need a blade. He appeared. On that battlefield, he was destined to become a murderer or die trying. Apart from this, there was no other possibility. Back then, he was like this. How could the current Zach not be like this? When he thought of this, Quincy couldn't bring himself to scold him. After being silent for nearly 5 minutes, he waved his hand, signaling for Zach to leave. When Zach was about to reach the door, he said, "Be careful!" Zach stopped and turned around to look at the old fox's desolate back. He felt a sense of loss. "As long as you don't touch the person closest to me, I will spare their lives. Even if you touch me, I will tolerate it. Grandpa, take care." After saying that, Zach left. This was the promise he made to Quincy, and it was a promise that he had already given in. Quincy could tell that Zach had made a concession in this promise, and he could also understand that Zach had made a concession because he was afraid that Zach would be sad. After a long sigh, Quincy left the large tile room and headed towards the ancestral hall of the Marquez family. Along the way, he had a calm expression on his face. No one could tell what was on his mind. When he entered the ancestral hall and closed the door, he fell to his knees in front of the memorial tablets. "Retribution! It's all retribution! If you're unwilling, it's all my fault! Don't blame it on my descendants!" Quincy's old eyes were filled with tears, and he even kowtowed towards the tribute plates. Back then, when he was forced to fight back, there was more than just the 7th son fighting for the throne. There were also 4 uncles on top, and a total of 11 people including him. At this moment, he knelt down and kowtowed. A total of 10 men. Being in a big family, he enjoyed the envious gazes of outsiders, but what he experienced was a bloody experience that outsiders would never be able to imagine. No one wanted to be the head of the family, but there had always been only one person. Regardless of whether that person was willing or not, his hands would definitely be filled with blood. After leaving the island, Zach received a call from Dr. Dusty before he even boarded the plane. Dr. Dusty was very excited on the phone. He said that the research and development of the power system had entered the final phase, and the next phase was the experimental phase, as this experimental phase meant that they had to test out the vehicle. Zach had not contacted the test car factory yet, so he called Carson. Carson said on the phone, "Yes, we need to find the vehicle factory. I have already checked. Although ordinary vehicles can be tested, I think we should find a more famous factory for testing equipment and future branding cooperation. Big brands are big brands after all. We can't just think about trial production. We also have to consider production problems in the future." Zach agreed with this point, but at the same time, he also put forward his own opinion. "I don't want to collaborate with foreign companies. This is a new energy vehicle that we have developed. There is no reason for us to share the research results with foreign companies." Carson agreed. "Of course, we can't look for a foreign company. I mean to look for a factory with honor to cooperate with. And coincidentally, I have an old leader who retired there, so we can talk about it with him. Which factory is it that has its own pride?" There was no need to think too much about it. Zach immediately thought of his new car, the QZ car. After conversing with Carson over the phone, Zach directly changed his ticket and flew towards the north. After the plane landed the next day, Zach saw Carson, who had arrived earlier. Although my old leader had already retired, he should still have something to say. Should we go over now, or should we take a rest first? After exiting the airport, Carson asked Zach. Zach waved his hand. I thought about it when we were on the plane. I won't go with you regarding the visit. Since he is your old leader, this matter will naturally be decided by you. If I go, it will be awkward. How about this? You go and see that old leader. I will go to the factory to see their equipment, assembly lines, and the management. Carson thought what Zach said had made sense, but he did not know what method Zach used to see the equipment in the factory. However, he knew that Zach had many strange methods, so he did not say anything else. After discussing some other details, Carson took a taxi to his old leader's place. As for Zach, he took a taxi to the factory, then handed a cigarette to the security guard in the security room and chatted with him. He didn't talk about the equipment or the production line, so the security guards weren't clear about it. Besides, he needed to see it personally. So he talked about hiring. As far as he knew, the vehicle factory was generally short on workers. The assembly line was filled with assembly line workers. This was not an empty sentence. The assembly line was the most torturous. If they had nothing to do, they would not be able to operate the next step. Even if they could go around the assembly line, they would have to hurry up and catch up. Occasionally, they wouldn't find anything. However, after a long time, they would get bored after a period of time. Moreover, they would often work in 2 shifts, which were 12 against 12. When they got back to work, they would have to work for 24 hours. It was very tiring. Therefore, even if he could work at full capacity every month, he would still need people on the production line, even if he had to pay around $5,000 for the insurance. As expected, just like Zach knew, the security guard said that the factory was indeed lacking people and they were hiring. How about this, brother? The factory will give us a commission for hiring people. If we hire one person for 3 months, we will give the referees $100. I will give you $50. How about you register under my name? When the security guard mentioned this, Zach seemed very happy. Sure, I can still earn $50. The security guard was quite happy. He instructed his classmates to take care of Zach first. Then he led Zach to the factory's human resources department to register. He was very happy in his heart. After Zach worked for 3 months, he would not give a single cent. It was equivalent to picking up $50 for free. However, Zach did not care about this in his heart. Anyway, he would not work for so long. He just needed to work for 2 or 3 days to get familiar with him. As for how happy he was when he heard the $50, it was mostly because he did not have a residence permit in this city. It was necessary for him to take part in work. But with the people from the security factory leading the way, it would be fine to help cover it up. It was true. When registering, the personnel from the Human Resources Department asked Zach for a residence permit. Zach poked the security guard, and the security guard immediately understood. He lives in my house. He's my tenant. His residence permit is still in progress. Since they were on the same side, the personnel from the Human Resources Department did not say much. They registered Zach and gave him work clothes and the like. There are a lot of production plants in the factory now. If you have nothing else to do, you can go to work today and familiarize yourself with the work. You can officially go to work tomorrow. If you start working early, you can get an extra day's salary, right? Zach agreed readily to the staff's suggestion. Seeing how happily he agreed, the security guard was quite happy. He felt that he had secured the introduction fee of $100. Episode 267, The Stubborn Access. Zach changed into his work clothes and entered the workshop. The worker had arranged for his employer to be called Hess. It sounded like Zach thought he was a woman. Zach was depressed when he saw him. He was big and strong, with a strong back and a strong waist. His hair was messy. Not only that, but he also had an untrimmed beard. He was a good man, but he actually called Hess. He really didn't know what his parents were thinking. When he was working with Hess, Zach tactfully inquired about it, and only then did he understand the reason. Hess wasn't called Hess in the past. He was called Hester. He was a young man who was competitive and combative. In the end, when the village registered his account, he had handed it over to the police station wrongfully. Hence, the police officers were kind enough to get closer to him. It was Hess. Zach could not help but laugh. Then you just have to change it. Hess rolled his eyes at him. What do you need to change it for? Change doesn't cost money. It costs $20 to pay. One word is $100. I need to change 2 words? It costs more than $200. If you don't change it, then it's free. In order to save so little money, he changed his name. Zach finally saw what it meant to save money. He even wanted to give Hess a few $100s, and then ask Hess to change his name to Stingy. He didn't know whether Hess would do it or not. He was just a newbie, and he wasn't familiar with this kind of joke. That was why he didn't take out the money. However, he felt that it was not familiar or appropriate, but Hess didn't think so. At noon, when they were about to get off work, a colleague said to Hess, "Sir, you have brought new people. You are not allowed to have an extra meal at noon?" Hess looked at Zach with a smile. "Show me what you want. They already asked you. You can set up a trap at noon." Zach thought to himself, "Why should I make a game of it?" He did not need those $180. What he lacked was the reason for this. Just as he was about to reject the offer, someone behind him suddenly said, "He just came and hasn't earned a single cent yet, and you want him to treat you to a meal? Hess, you have a pretty big face. Why don't you set up a trap to welcome your new colleagues?" There was actually someone who was speaking up for him. This surprised Zach. He turned around and saw Walker, the class monitor. Walker was about 40 years old this year. He was not tall and had short hair. He looked very energetic. After Walter finished speaking, Hess was unhappy. Giving filial piety to him? Walker walked past Zach and stood in front of Hess, who was 1 head taller than him. He asked, "What right do you have to talk about filial piety? You have only worked here for less than a half a year, and you already know how to show filial piety? What did you teach him? Teach him how to use the air rotor to screw? Do I need you to teach me this?" Walker's attitude was quite tough, as if he wanted to fight Hess. Zach was thinking about Walker's previous attitude. Did he have a grudge with Hess? It shouldn't be that simple to treat a newcomer like him, right? While he was pondering, Hess started arguing with Walker. The more they quarreled, the more intense it became. They were all pushing and shoving each other. Zach and his colleagues quickly stopped the two of them. Not really! Not really! They are both colleagues! Why? After much discussion, they finally persuaded the two of them to stop. I'm not going to bring this fucking rookie anymore! Whoever brings him, fucking bring him! Fuck! Hess was quite angry. He immediately left Zach behind and did not care about him anymore. Walker patted Zach on the shoulder and said, "It's okay. Follow me from now on. I will arrange a position for you." Zach smiled. After he left with Walker and changed his position, Zach asked his colleagues about Walker. When he found out that Zach was curious about the fight between Walker and Hess because of him, the colleague smiled. "Isn't this very normal? Everyone in the factory knows that our Walker is a warm-hearted person, and he can't bear to see others bully him. Don't think that he only helped you or targeted Hess. He has helped many people and targeted even more people." It was only from his colleague's words that Zach understood that Walker really only wanted to help him. There was no other reason. Looking at it this way, Walker was really a good person, and that was hard to come by. He was worth making friends with. The food in the factory was provided by the canteen. Everyone would go to the canteen or outside to eat where the production could be stopped. There was a food cart being pushed over from the assembly line. He arranged for his colleagues to go and get food. His other colleagues would do the work for him. Zach had not taken up his position yet. Naturally, he was the only one who took up the job of getting lunch in the afternoon. After he finished cooking, he returned here and divided the food among his colleagues. Everyone was surprised when they saw it. The most expensive chicken drumstick, braised pork box meal, 2 meat dishes, 1 vegetable dish, and 1 rice dish. It was $20. They were all here to work and earn money. Who would be willing to eat such expensive food? But Zach was willing to, and he was treating everyone to a meal. The people in Walker's class were all very happy. Walker was the only one who was unhappy. When they were eating, he took out $100 and stuffed it into Zach's hands. "Young man, you spend a lot of money. Your apprentice can't even earn $100 a day for half a month. Scholars treat you to a meal. What kind of guest are you treating? Hurry up and keep the money." Zach did not accept it. He had said that he would treat Walker, and then he would accept Walker's money? Then what kind of person is he? But Walker also had his own reasons. "If I let you treat me to a meal, then, just now, I helped you because I was jealous of you inviting a guest of Hess. But now it's my turn?" Walker was determined not to accept it. He even threatened Zach to leave this class if he did not accept it. Zach had no choice but to accept the $100. While Walker was eating, Zach helped him install the seat in the driver's seat with the air rotor. As he installed the seat, Zach chatted with Walker. "You like to meddle in other people's business. Aren't you afraid of getting into trouble?" Walker snorted coldly and didn't say anything. A colleague beside him said, "What do you know? If our Walker was afraid of getting into trouble, we would have..." Before he could finish his words, the man shut his mouth under Walker's gaze. Obviously, Walker didn't want him to talk too much. If he didn't say anything, Zach wouldn't force him either. And at this time, he did not have the heart to ask, because he found a woman who was exceptionally beautiful. As she walked into the workshop, apart from wearing a safety helmet, she didn't even wear work clothes. Her black high heels and stockings were very different from the busy work scene in the workshop. However, it showed that she was becoming more and more sexy and seductive, even more exciting than when she was carrying the car. The woman was Director Luna. Luna, who was in charge of receiving Zach when he was buying the car. Seeing Luna walking away with the company of the factory, Zach asked Walker, "Walker, who is this? She seems to be quite powerful." Walker replied without even raising his head, "Of course she is. She is a 33-year-old vice president of a company and has a master's degree in management. After graduating, she became a senior in a foreign car company and jumped back to her hometown. She is the vice president of our company. How can she not be good?" When Luna was mentioned, the colleagues next to him also had the interest to interrupt. They spoke one after another. Other than some vulgar jokes, there was also a lot of useful information. This was not bad. This Luna should also have the intention to advance and seemed to be able to have a deeper level of contact with her. Just as he was thinking about this matter, an accident happened. Zach pondered. If Luna really had the intention to advance, then this objection for this trip could be discussed with another person. He could totally use sub-brands to jointly produce and use the shops under this brand to sell. Just as they were thinking about this, 7 or 8 people rushed over and surrounded Zach and Walker. At first glance, it seemed like he took the lead and aggressively questioned Walker. "You are so damn good. I thought you were so clean and honest. It turns out that you brought people here to invite you as a guest. You are really good at this." Episode 268, Lowering His Level. As soon as Hess finished his words, he was pulled aside by a man with a tattoo of a tiger on his chest. Zach had seen this man before when they were eating. His name was Tiger, and he was very tough. He brought a few people here to eat. The workers who were surrounding the dining car let him hit first. It seemed like he was a tyrant in the factory, and he looked quite evil. However, from another perspective, he was really not that evil. If he was really a bad person, why would he come to the factory to work? At this moment, the tiger came to Walker's side. "You're pretty tough." After hearing this, he understood. This must be the nonsense of Hess in front of the tiger. Zach didn't even know this tiger. Why did he have to invite him as a guest? Besides, this kind of thing was a tiger? Zach wanted to beat up the tiger and his men, but he thought that he would leave after a few days. Walker still had to continue living here. When that time came, the tiger would definitely find trouble with him, so he held back the urge to fight. Walker was completely fearless. Just as he was trying to reason with Tiger, Zach went forward and hooked the tiger's neck. It seemed like the tiger was quite enthusiastic. It was the tiger who took the initiative to go with Zach. In fact, only the tiger knew about this. He had to leave. His neck had been forcefully clamped. It was very painful. Just as he was about to curse, Zach took out $1,000 from his pocket and gave it to him. "You want a face? I want stability. So we are friends now, right?" Tiger looked at Zach, and then at the $1,000 that he had stuffed into his pocket. He was instantly amused. "Good brother, good brother!" Tiger then said to the people around him, "This man is my good brother. If anyone dares to bully him in the future, I will kill them." Tiger laughed at Zach a few times, then returned to Walker's side. "It's a misunderstanding, Walker. It's a misunderstanding. Speaking of which, we all know each other. What kind of guest are you inviting?" "It's just a joke." "All right, you go ahead with your work. I won't disturb you anymore." The tiger came aggressively and left while laughing loudly. Hess was stunned. This was different from the tiger he knew. The tiger was very fierce in the past. What was going on today? He quickly chased after him. "Brother Who, what's the meaning of this? Didn't we agree to teach them a lesson?" The tiger slapped Hess's face, causing him to be dumbfounded. "No, why did you hit me?" The tiger didn't give an explanation. It just turned around and left with its men. He could not explain. His neck was still in pain. Zach gave him another $1,000. He had money in his pocket. Of course, he would not continue to argue with Zach. He was a tiger in society, but he was doing well in the factory. Why? Because he had good eyesight. He could tell that Zach was not someone to be trifled with. And he was not a person who was afraid of trouble. He had already made it clear that what he wanted was stability. Now that he had the money, he also had money. Of course, he would not foolishly come forward to cause trouble. However, Hess still dared to stick his head out and continue to burn people. Not to mention slapping him. He even wanted to beat him up. After the tiger left, Hess was stunned. Zach continued to work in the driver's seat. However, in the next moment, Walker came closer and pushed Zach to the side. He was not in a good mood at all. Zach felt helpless. He knew that it was because of the $1,000, but he still pretended to be stupid and asked, "What's wrong, Walker?" Walker ignored him and continued to work in the driver's seat. No matter how Zach asked, he did not answer. When Zach went to the driver's seat of the next car and sat down, making it impossible for Walker to work, Walker had no choice but to speak. "Why do you want to compromise? Why do you give them money? Don't tell me you want to work with them. I look down on people like you the most. You don't have any backbone at all. Hurry up and get out. Don't delay my work." The old man's temper was quite stubborn and upright, although Zach could not do anything about Walker's stubbornness. At the same time, he admired it. This kind of person should be the kind of person who would never change his mind, even if he was beaten to death. During the war, he was most suitable to be an underground party member. He had a firm will, a stubborn temper, and he didn't fear danger. He wouldn't let go even if he was beaten to death. However, today's society was clearly not used to such people. That was why, as Zach had known in the morning, Walker had been taken down from a workshop director who was comparable to a deputy director. He had become a deputy director. He had experienced adjustments and had worked for a long period of time. Until recently, he had become a junior class monitor. There were goldfish in the clear water, which was a beautiful scene. However, when the clear water was filled with loaches, this goldfish would be bitten no matter where it went, even if it was moldy. According to Zach's estimation, Walker's class monitor would not be able to work for long. After a period of time, he would become a leading soldier. Perhaps after a period of time, Walker would not be in the factory anymore. He would have to find a reason to kick him out. In the afternoon, Walker did not reason with Zach. Zach did not rush to talk to him. He paid attention to the equipment in the factory. To be honest, it was indeed a big business. It was a big business, and all the equipment was most advanced and new. It was said that the factory next door was also operated by robots. There was only a few workers, and the quality of the equipment was very good. It was very exciting. Zach wanted to find an opportunity to go over and take a look, but unfortunately, he he did not find an opportunity. If it was really as the workers had said, then he would be the most interested in the robot assembly line. After all, many luxury cars nowadays were operated by robots throughout the process, including spraying and so on. The biggest advance of a robot production line compared to an artificial production line was that the People's Union secretly made mistakes and lazed around. However, robots wouldn't, and the mistakes after making mistakes were also very obvious. They definitely wouldn't let the screw loose under the seat like how humans did. If they did, then so be it. In any case, they wouldn't be able to see it. At night, Zach and Carson bumped heads. The two of them chatted as they ate. Carson expressed that this matter didn't go smoothly. Although the old leader felt that this matter was quite reliable and supported it, the current power was indeed limited. The subordinates who had been in power before had now given up everything that needed to be done, and those who needed to change jobs had changed jobs. However, the old leader still promised to do his best to help us. He asked us to wait here for a few days. Since they were waiting here, it meant that the old leader was indeed trying to help them. Otherwise, why would he basically ask them to wait for a few days? Then these few days would be a long time. If they didn't call to ask, they could wait for a lifetime. Okay, then let's wait. Anyway, there's nothing urgent to go back to. After chatting for a while, Zach and Carson temporarily parted ways after dinner. Zach still had other things to do, and he still had to go to Walker's place to take a look. This person was an excellent production manager. If he really had great abilities, as the employees had said, he would definitely be useful in the future. Episode 269, You Can't Pick It Up. Before he got off work in the afternoon, Zach had heard about Walker's address, so after leaving the restaurant, he took a taxi and rushed over. The neighborhood Walker lived in was quite old. It was covered in thick debris and concrete walls. The neighborhood storefront was full of bumps and hollows, and there was even a pile of garbage. People with 20 cents had already moved out. Those who stayed here were either old people or people from poor families who were waiting for the demolition. The last type was the tenants. Walker was the last type. After knocking on the door, Walker saw Zach and frowned. "What are you doing here?" Zach stretched out 10 big fingers. "I am a guest at the door. I came here with 10 big fingers. Why aren't you letting me in?" Walker had nothing to say. He could only turn around and return to the house. If Zach came with something, he really wouldn't let him in? In the past, when he was the workshop director, he didn't accept gifts, and now he naturally wouldn't. After entering the room, Zach found that Walker's home was indeed very simple. Even the television was that kind of big butt. In the second suite, one of the bedrooms belonged to the couple, and the other bedroom belonged to their son who was in high school. The child was probably still in the middle of self-study at school and had not returned. Walker's sick wife was coughing on the bed in the bedroom from time to time. It sounded like she was very sick and did not even have much strength to cough. Zach went to greet his wife and chatted with her for a while before returning to the living room. Walker glared at him. "How can you be flexible? You are colluding with them, taking money to a person's relative and treating public property as your own. When I was the workshop director, I relied on my own ability to become the workshop director, not on the messy relationships of giving gifts. So, what I hate the most is giving gifts. The money earned by relying on your own ability. I spend and count steadily." Zach asked, "Then, what about your wife and child?" When mentioning his wife and child, Walker's face went full of guilt, but he still replied without hesitation, "Who asked them to be my family? I have this problem. I don't want money from outside. I have the strength to work part-time at night to earn 20 cents more. It's also better than taking that messy money." Zach admired a person who could be so stubborn. Of course, this kind of access was a kind of praise. It represented the meaning behind it. It was a person's noble character. Zach knew that if he changed his position, he would not be like Walker. But this did not stop him from admiring this kind of person. After understanding Walker's character, Zach did not continue to talk about this topic. Instead, he intentionally or unintentionally changed the topic to Walker's past journey of growth. Wanting to know how Walker was doing in the field of production, and management. When Zach started this topic, Walker really spoke with confidence and assurance. It seemed like he was talking about the most glorious time in his life, and it made him recall the most glorious time in his life. At that time, I caught production. The quality of the workshop was the best, and the production efficiency was the highest. Although everyone was a little tired, their salary was high, and no one was unhappy. You have to know the best and the highest that I said was from the entire company. There was an old leader in the company who arranged for me to do a report to the entire company before I retired. He wanted to report my work experience and promote the company. However, after the new leader took office, the report was canceled. He said that the production plan had been busy recently and it would be postponed. I know, he's not postponing. He's waiting for me to give him a gift. I'm not going. Why should I go? It felt as if someone was deliberately targeting him, waiting for him to beg for mercy, reducing him by one level. Do you submit? If you don't accept it, then give him a level lower. Do you accept it? Do you still refuse to submit? If you don't accept it, then you will be demoted to another level. Now that he had been demoted to the class leader level, he would be a big soldier if he continued to be demoted. However, Walker still refused to accept it. His understanding had always been the same. There was only one thing. I eat with my abilities. I don't eat with my connections. After more than half an hour of narration by Walker, Zach also understood a lot of things. This Walker was indeed an old technical worker. He had started from the grassroots management step by step. It could be said that there was nothing that he did not know about production, including factory power, equipment maintenance, and planning production. He knew all kinds of miscellaneous things. Although I don't have a high degree of education, I've been working here since I was 16. I've been working here for nearly 30 years this year. I'm familiar with every brick and tile in this factory. In any case, I feel that during the 2 years I've been the workshop director, this is how I feel. There's nothing wrong with it. Zach nodded. He really believed this. He said seriously, with your ability, you can be a factory director. Just focus on the production. Walker also nodded very seriously. I know, I think so too. But if you give me a production deputy director, I can't do it. It's more than enough to catch the production speed and quality of my ability, but my ability to do things for people is very poor. But I also don't understand why it's so difficult to do a proper and serious job. Isn't this what I should do? Zach smiled and shook his head. He did not say anything else. However, he thought highly of Walker. He could even change Walker's life. When the cars he researched were put into production, Walker would be a production manager, and he would also have to be a production manager. In the bedroom, Walker's wife began to cough again. It sounded quite serious, so Walker quickly went over to take care of it. Zach also took the opportunity to leave Walker's house. He told his sister-in-law to take care of herself, and he left. He had asked before that her illness was not serious. It was just that she lacked treatment all year round. She did not have the money to operate on her. Therefore, after he left the house, Zach had already made a plan in his heart. He wanted to treat Walker's wife's illness first. When he really made the plan, Zach, who was walking on the street after leaving the community, was attracted by a bunch of high school students. These high school students were divided into two groups. One group consisted of 5 people, and the other group consisted of 5 people. At this time, the 5 high school students were surrounding that student, ridiculing him. Well, then you are trash. Trash like your father, Walker. That's right. Other than learning, what else can you do? You're not even a fart. Do you understand? What does he know? The only person in our school who doesn't have a phone is him, right? He doesn't even have an old phone that can only answer calls. You still want to ask him if he understands? He only knows how to complain to the teachers and say that we play with our phones in class. Under the ridicule of the crowd, Walden explained, "We are about to take the college entrance exam. Can you guys be more mature? When can't you guys play with your phones? When the college entrance exam ends, you can play to your heart's content. But can you concentrate on revising now? The college entrance exam is an important turning point in life. As your class monitor, of course, I will be responsible for you. This Walden is quite sensible. This made Zach feel happy for Walker from the bottom of his heart. Of course, he would never watch Walker's child be bullied. Episode 270, Bones. Walden felt helpless. The poor living environment did not make him lower his head to life. Instead, he hoped to find a way out through studying. Seeing his father being bullied again and again without lowering his head, this gave him a firm and correct outlook in life. So he had always been more mature than his peers, whether it was learning or living. Today he had already tried to persuade his classmates. No one had paid him any attention. Instead, they were even more unbridled and disturbed the revision of his other classmates. He had no choice but to find his teacher, but he did not expect that, on the way back from school, he would actually suffer the revenge of his classmates. After trying so hard to console them, the classmate even said to him, "We don't need to find a way out. What do we want? We don't need to find a way out. When the time comes, we can spend money to get a diploma in a university and then go to the factory and make arrangements for our parents. When the time comes, we will still be on the same starting line as you, but the difference is that we will be running in the leadership position, while you'll be running in a normal job position. To put it bluntly, you are working for us. You are a natural failure, trash." It had to be said that this child was very mature, but his maturity was human nature. It was under his father's influence that he understood the current society. If one were to look at it from the bottom of one's eyes, what he said might very well become a reality in a few years' time. If it were to develop according to the established route, in another 10 years, Walden would become their soldier, the worker, and the loser that they talked about. However, since Zach was here, he naturally would not allow such a thing to happen. When Walden could not persuade them, or was not going to persuade them anymore, the 5 high school students with superior families stopped Walden again. "Stupid idiot! Don't think about running away. Hurry up and get our phones back. If you can't get our phones back, your dad Walker won't be able to keep his job. I'll go back tonight and let my dad drive him." It was fierce and barbaric. The brutality and the barbarism brought about by this kind of power made Walden not know how to face it. He even felt a little afraid. His mother was currently on the sickbed. If his father was expelled again, he really did not know how his family would continue living. Just as Walden was getting more and more worried, Zach had already walked out of the phone store by the roadside with a shopping bag in his hand. The shopping bag was very ordinary. It was just an ordinary paper bag, but the image of a fruit phone and a logo were printed on it. Zach walked in front of Walden, who did not know what to do. He looked at the group of children with a smile, then took out a 256 GAX that had not been opened and handed it to Walden. Walden was stunned. He didn't know who Zach was, and he didn't know what Zach was trying to do. Zach gestured to him to take it. "Take it." Walden subconsciously took the hand, not knowing what Zach was trying to do. After that, Zach took out an unopened 256 GAX from the bag. He opened it and took out his phone. He said to the leader of the 5 students, "This is for him to return it to you." The student was very happy, but just as he was about to answer, Zach threw it into the stinky ditch on the side of the road. The ditch was filled with mud, and the stench was unbearable. The phone flew down, and flies flew everywhere. Looking at the dumbfounded classmate, Zach said, "If you want to go down and get it yourself, then throw it away if you don't want it. Someone will pick it up." After that, Zach opened the remaining 4 256 GAXs. Under the stunned gazes of the 5 students, they all flew towards the stinky ditch. He casually threw the accessories onto the ground, and Zach took out a cigarette and lit it. "I heard that you all are quite rich, and your father is also quite amazing. Then don't go and pick them up. A phone is only worth $1. I believe you guys don't lack money. These few phones that go easy on people, let them pick them up and use them." After saying that, Zach opened the phone in Walden's hand. Just when everyone thought that the 6th phone was going to fly away, Zach turned on the phone and took Walden's hand to record his fingerprints. Remember, when you see me in the future, call me Uncle. This phone is my gift to you. If these little idiots dare to cause trouble for you in the future, I will find someone to throw all of them into the mud of that stinky ditch and plant them. Uncle? Not to mention the 5 high school students. Even Walden himself was stunned. He didn't even know what kind of uncle he had jumped out of, and why was he so rich? According to the current price, these 6 pieces of fruit, max, would probably be there. Nearly $60,000, right? He just threw it away. Looking at the phone in his hand, Walden really did not know what to do. Zach hugged his neck and directly hugged to the side. This phone is for you. You can keep it. You don't need to tell your parents or talk about me. They don't know me at all, and I'm not your uncle either. I'm only doing this because I don't like them. I want to help you get back at them. Walden felt that it was still impossible, but apart from that, he couldn't think of any other reason. He looked at the phone in his hand and quickly returned it to Zach. Uncle, I can't take this phone. I'm grateful that you helped me, but I really can't take this phone. As for the phones you lost, I can't afford them either, but I can write you an IOU. My name is Walden. I will return them to you in the future. This child had really exceeded Zach's expectations. He was not greedy for money, and he still had to take responsibility for it. He did not know how Walker had raised this child, but this child was really not bad. He was just a child from another family. Zach liked him very much. He repeatedly asked him to keep the phone, but he did not accept it. However, Zach did not answer. He just changed the topic and signaled Walden's 5 classmates to go and take a look. At this time, those 5 classmates were lowering their heads to discuss. Damn, when did Walden have such an uncle? He threw away his uncle's $50,000 phone just like that, and even gave one to Walden. You don't care about that. The main problem now is whether we pick it up or not. That phone is close to $10,000. Of course we will. Will your dad buy you a phone worth $10,000? Anyway, my dad won't. No, we can't pick it up now. Walden and his rich uncle are watching. They just want to see how we embarrass ourselves. We can't pick it up. We'll pick it up after they leave later. We'll go back at night and clean them up. Let's just say we bought it. No one will know that we didn't buy them. These were smart kids who even took advantage of it. How embarrassing. But the problem was that they weren't the only ones who saw Zach lose his phone. There was also the owner of the phone shop. The owner of the mobile phone shop met such a big customer in the middle of the night. Of course, he sent him off warmly. However, not long after he sent Zach out of the phone shop, he saw the big customer throw his phone into the smelly ditch. It was all money. Even if he didn't feel bad about it, he would feel bad about it. So after seeing Zach leave, he prepared to go and pick up the phone. Wasn't it just a smelly ditch? Of course, money was important. At this moment, Walden's 5 classmates saw that their phones were about to be snatched, and they immediately became anxious. What face did they have at this moment? Of course, they wanted their phones to be more important. Therefore, the 5 of them did not even bother to drag their shoes as they rushed into the stinky ditch. In that instant, flies flew everywhere, and the stench was unbearable. Episode 271, Working for Fun. Remember their faces. That's the biggest difference between you and them. If you have goods in your stomach, you will never have to bow your head to anyone or anything. If you lose 6 phones today, you still dare to give me an IOU. This is your confidence, because you believe that you will be able to earn these 6 phones and money through your own efforts in the future. But they won't. They will only lower their heads to anyone or anything, because there is nothing else that they can do besides lowering their heads. Zach patted Walden on the shoulder. Work hard and have high hopes for your future. After 2 more heavy slaps, Zach stopped the taxi and left. By the time Walden came back to his senses, Zach had already left. He could not return the phone in his hand, even if he wanted to. He turned his head to look at his classmates in the smelly ditch. At this time, the 5 of them were originally pretty good, had already started fighting in the mud. The reason was that they had found a phone and wanted to grab it in their hands. They wanted to quickly leave the stinky ditch with it in their hands. Therefore, not only were they unable to leave quickly, but their bodies were all covered in stinky mud. Walden finally realized why Zach threw away the 5 phones. He knew Zach's good intentions. Zach used the 5 phones to give him a life lesson. Just like that, Zach said before he left, as long as he had something in his stomach, he would never have to bow his head to anyone or anything that he knew. Walden became more and more determined to change his future will through his own efforts. He ignored the 5 classmates who were still fighting in the stinky ditch and walked home with his new phone and the accessories on the floor. He didn't care about these chargers and the other accessories. The reason he picked them up was that he didn't want the other 5 students to use his phones to their heart's content. After returning home, Walden went to find his father, Walker. He didn't listen to Zach, but told everything that happened tonight to him, to Walker. Walker estimated the time and asked Walden about his clothes and facial features. He easily confirmed that it was Zach who helped his son, but he was a little curious. Zach, did he really come to work in the factory? He had worked in the factory for 25 years, but he had never seen a worker who did not take money. He could even tell that Zach went to work. It was not for money at all. And what was it for? Dad, do you know that man? If you know him, help me return this phone to him. Walden took the phone and handed it to Walker. Although his eyes were full of reluctance, he did not hesitate at all. Walker originally wanted to reach out his hand, but when he saw his son's reluctant gaze, he felt a wave of sourness in his heart. In the eyes of parents, not being able to get their child what they wanted was the greatest pain and the greatest self-blame. So tonight, Walker was extravagant for once. Son, you keep your phone. These years you are very sensible and will soon take the college entrance exam. After the college entrance exam, you will need to go to college. You will also need a phone. As for the money for buying the phone, Dad will help you pay that man back. But Dad, we don't have the money. Walker stopped Walden from talking and sent him back to his room to study. After closing Walden's door, Walker couldn't help but cry. After all these years, he had insisted on making his wife, who was sick in bed, better. He had no money to cure her. He made his child suffer and be ridiculed. He felt like he was about to take it. He could not take it anymore. He wanted to kneel down and kowtow to reality. It was not that his backbone was not strong enough, but if he did not bend down, the days of his wife and child under him would be even more difficult. The next day at work, Walker brought the $10,000. He got up early and went to the ATM to withdraw. The newspaper was wrapped and brought to the factory. When he saw Zach, he pulled Zach to the side. When Zach heard that Walker wanted to return the money, he waved his hand and said, "You can forget about that. It was a reward for being sensible to the child, not for you. What money are you going to give me? Hurry up and keep it." Walker refused. He insisted on returning the money, and once again used the reason to chase Zach away as a threat. Zach said, "Walker, do you think I can casually throw away $60,000? Do you think I'm the one who cares about this job?" With just one sentence, Walker was rendered speechless. This was true. No matter how he looked at it, Zach did not seem like he was here to work. He looked more like he was here for vacation. He looked around at the equipment and looked for workers to ask for guidance. Walker could not help but be curious. He asked Zach, "What are you here for?" Zach replied, "I want to tell you that I am here to discuss business with your group. I want to know about the equipment first. Do you believe me?" Walker nodded without hesitation. "I believe you. Although you are very young, I can see that your way of talking is different from others. Your way of dealing with problems and the way you look at the problems is also very high-end. This kind of situation can only mean that you have a higher level of insight." Episode 272. I have to fire him. Zach clicked his tongue in wonder. He never thought that Walker's analysis would be so reasonable. However, he still teased. "You are not trying to flatter me, are you?" Walker sneered. "If I really wanted to flatter you, I would not need to look for you. How nice would it be if I went straight to the company to flatter you? Although he had wanted to lower his head last night, Walker still held back in the end. The child was about to take the college entrance exam and go to the university. After graduating from university, the family pressure would slowly be alleviated. Everything was developing in a good direction, changing in a good direction. He had even endured the most difficult moment. And why did he lower his head to reality and surrender? The two of them chatted for a while, then Zach told Walker about what had happened. I want to sign an agreement with the company that the cars I produce will become a subsidiary brand of the company. Then, they will provide production lines and management, as well as the sales and the after-sales services of the car. I am responsible for giving part of the profits to them. When the time comes, I will need a manager like you to help me strictly monitor production and quality. Walker was stunned. If what Zach said was true, then wouldn't he immediately become the factory head? He didn't suspect that Zach was bragging, because after a short day of getting along with him, he realized that Zach was different from the rest. He was willing to believe in Zach, so this was the only thing that he could talk about. I understand what you mean. I am also willing to seize this opportunity without changing my mind, but the first condition is that I cannot change myself. I'm not good at dealing with human affairs, and I don't know how to deal with people, much less be flexible. Before Walker could finish, Zach waved his hand. You said it. Those are not what I need. What I need is quality. What I need to do is have the best quality car. Other than that, I don't need anything else. Can you hold on for me? Of course Walker could. He was 100% sure that he could. What he was best at was catching production and quality. Regarding this point, he could not only grab hold of it tightly, but he could also catch it tightly. After deciding on these things, Walker suddenly smiled and said, Why do I feel like I'm a fool? You just gave me such a large pitch. What am I supposed to believe? I do not know if you are as trustworthy as you appear. Zach smiled and stood up. Walker, I'm not joking you. I'm giving you a big opportunity. It's much bigger than you think. In the next 2 days, under Walker's lead, Zach saw all the production equipment and assembly lines. He even had the opportunity to go in and inspect the production line next door. After all, Walker used to be the workshop director. Although he would not do things for others, many of the people he had brought before would do things for others. Now, they all had good achievements. Although it was not possible to promote him, letting him go around was not a problem. On this day, when Walker was taking Zach around in his free time, he accidentally ran into the group leader. His heart skipped a beat. After all, this was not their production line, and the leader knew him. Just as he was panicking, the most beautiful and youngest vice president of the company, Luna, spoke. Her delicate face was full of surprise. Why are you here? Walker said shyly, Director Luna, Before Walker could finish, Luna pushed him to the side. I'm asking him, not you. Luna continued to stare at Zach. She asked in confusion, How do you become a factory worker? Walker was stunned. He thought Luna was asking him, but he did not expect Luna to be asking Zach. At this time, Zach was smiling. I said we would meet again. Luna did not say anything. She was thinking about what Zach meant. Zach did not speak either. He just smiled and looked at Luna, admiring her beautiful face. Episode 273. I'm going to strangle you. While the two of them were silent, Walter spoke. Director Luna, do you two know each other? Only then did Luna realize that it was not appropriate for them to be silent here, so she replied, Not very familiar. I've seen him before outside. After giving a perfunctory excuse, Luna waved at Zach. Come, I have something to discuss with you. Since it was a gesture to Zach, Walker naturally wouldn't follow. Zach followed behind Luna and walked towards the office building in the distance. Finally, the two of them arrived at the office building. Luna pushed open the door to the reception room on the first floor. After gesturing for Zach to take a seat, Luna said to Zach, Mr. Marquez, why did you appear in our company's factory? Is there something that I am not sure about? Zach replied, "How is that possible? I think the reason is very obvious. I wanted to see you. That's why I'm here. Because only by being here can I see you every day and see the beautiful director Luna that I've been thinking about day and night." Luna smiled, but her smile was a little fake. "Mr. Marquez, you really like to joke." Zach took out a cigarette and signaled Luna with his eyes for her permission. Luna replied, "Please, don't let me stop you." Zach lit up a cigarette and took a puff. Then he closed the green smoke and spoke to Luna. Luna also touched Zach's cigarette and took out a cigarette to light it up. "Mr. Marquez, if you want to chat like this, it would be boring. What if I fire you while we are chatting?" Zach looked at Luna, who had a proud smile on her face. "Director Luna, are you threatening me?" Luna spread her hands and pretended to be innocent. "I'm not. Why would I threaten a client of the company? I was just making adjustments to the company's plans. Although it's just one person, as long as it's me who does it, then forget it." It was very domineering, and it was the same as telling Zach openly that as long as she wanted to expel him, no one would be able to say otherwise. Zach seemed very helpless. "Then I can go online and discredit you as the owner of the QZL5. Then I can take out a few $100,000 to look for a bot company on the internet and create a large number of negative comments on that car. Surely that would be very bad for business, and it would be very bad for your factory. Who knows what could happen to you in the future? If I were to join in on these negative comments, then wouldn't that give it more credibility? Seems like you are stuck in an awful position." Luna was stunned. She never thought that Zach would actually go back on his word. He deliberately pretended to be two-faced and willing to destroy her reputation. Thinking about it, it was really not a solved issue. If the sales were not high in the first place, then it was all a symbol of status. If they were to be blacklisted from the market and forced to recall a new model, and even hired an online push team to do the dirty work, what could they do? Therefore, she could only say to Zach, "You are really shameless." Zach had a modest smile on his face. "Thank you for the compliment. I am in awe and trepidation." Luna was very helpless. She never thought that someone like Zach, who could afford to buy a QZL5, would be so shameless. There was no way he could cheat like this. The two of them looked at each other in silence for a while, before Luna asked again, "Director Marquez, can you tell me why you joined our company as a respected car owner and became an ordinary first-line employee?" Zach extinguished the cigarette and replied seriously, "I found that the plastic cap on my car's wheels and mouth is missing. I wanted to get an original one, so I came to your company. I was wondering if I could steal one and take it back. Who would have thought that before the theft could even begin, my scheme was seen through by the wise and perceptive Director Luna." Luna was a master's student in corporate management, but she was forced by Zach to give up on academic literature and practice martial arts. His tactics were more personal and could not be handled by someone only wishing to do good business. Put it simply, she wanted to smash Zach to death with a large glass urn on the table. This guy was so damn infuriating. Suppressing the annoyance of being deliberately provoked, Luna asked seriously, "Mr. Marquez, I am asking you very seriously. Why exactly is it that you want to sabotage me?" Zach naturally knew why Luna asked, so he answered very seriously, "You want to know the truth. Treat me to dinner tonight. If you treat me to dinner, I will tell you." Luna was convinced. She had never seen such a shameless person. He was completely like a rogue and did not have any tricks. She did not ask any more questions. After snuffing out the cigarette, she got up and was about to open the door of the reception room to see Mr. Marquez out. Episode 274. This kid is crazy. After Zach left, Walker started thinking. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that Zach and Luna must have known each other for a long time. it was definitely not as simple as what he had seen outside. If he had really seen them outside, why would he go to the office building alone to talk to them? This was clearly because there were some things that he did not want outsiders to hear. However, he thought that this was a good thing. Zach and Luna knew each other, which made him more and more convinced that his trust in Zach was correct. He thought that when he became the factory director in the future, his salary would be higher, and he would be able to treat his wife's symptoms at the root. But at that moment, his wife called. "Hubby, someone came to deliver $200,000. He said that Director Marquez arranged for him to send it over and perform surgery for me. I didn't dare accept it, but he put it down and left. He even told me to treat my illness well." Director Marquez? Who is that? Walker's heart was touched. Who could Director Marquez be? And who could give his wife treatment without leaving a name? Of course, it was Zach. He still wanted to save money to treat his wife's illness, but Zach had already arranged for someone to send the money over quietly. Regardless of whether he accepted it or not, he was especially grateful to Zach. He instructed his wife to collect the money first. Walker hung up the phone. Zach came back as soon as he hung up the phone. Walker mentioned the $200,000. "Director Marquez," he said, "the $200,000, Before Walker could finish, Zach waved his hand. "It doesn't matter if you are willing to use it as a loan or as a gift. Anything is fine. But since your wife is seriously ill and can still recover after surgery, you should quickly take the money to treat her. There is no bribery between us before, so you don't have to think too much about it. What if you reject the $200,000? Your wife's illness will only get worse. Not treating it when you have the chance is not recommended, but then you won't even have time to regret it." What Zach said made a lot of sense, so Walker couldn't refuse. After thinking for a while, he nodded solemnly. "All right, then I'll accept it. I'll write you an IOU later." Zach said, "You and Walden really are father and son. He gave me an IOU, and now you." Zach said the second half of the sentence. He wanted to say it, but in the end, he didn't have the nerve to say it. The second half of his sentence was, "I have more IOUs than I deserve. There's no place to put that thing." However, thinking that it was a bit too arrogant and too flaunting, it was not appropriate, so he swallowed it back. The two chatted as they walked towards their workplace. After work in the evening, Zach saw Carson in the restaurant they had agreed upon. While they were having dinner, Carson reported on the recent work situation and told Zach, "The old leader wants to talk to you in person tonight. According to my guess, there is an 80% chance that there is an opportunity. Otherwise, he wouldn't have called us over." Zach nodded and agreed readily. After all, he was the real big boss. If he wanted to make a decision on this matter, he had to come forward. After dinner, Zach had decided to go to the gift shop first and find some healthcare products to Carson's old boss. The food didn't matter. The main thing was that he wanted to give it to Carson. However, Carson refused. The old man didn't accept the gifts at all. He didn't even agree to my invitation to the banquet tonight. No wonder. Zach was still thinking about it in his heart. Carson was too rigid. He didn't know how to ask someone out to discuss matters at the table. Now it seemed like he had wronged Carson. It was because the old man was too honest. It was also good. What he was doing was proper business. He was not afraid of this kind of upright person. If he was not careful, he might even get twice the result with half the effort. Together with Carson, Zach rushed to the old leader's home. When they arrived at the entrance of the community, Zach met an old man who was taking a stroll. The old man was close to 70 years old. His hair was white, but he did have a good head. He was still exercising while taking a stroll. At this time, Carson also said in a low voice, "What a coincidence! We actually met here." Zach immediately understood that this was the old leader. Sure enough, the next moment, Carson enthusiastically went forward. "Old leader, you didn't come out specifically to welcome us, right?" The old man chuckled and replied, "You can say so. After dinner, you get used to coming down to exercise." you're worried that I won't be home after you guys come over. So I waited for you guys at the entrance of the neighborhood. After exchanging a few words, Carson introduced this old man to Zach. Episode 275. Introduction. This is Sean, the former executive vice president of the group. Back then, I worked under the old man. He didn't think too much about it. After all, the old man was still there. Zach quickly went forward and greeted him warmly. After Carson introduced Zach to him, Sean carefully looked at Zach with a playful look in his eyes. Director Marquez is a young and talented man. Young and promising. I dare not imagine meeting you. Zach understood what Sean meant. This meant that he didn't dare to imagine whether a young man like him was playing with tickets or something else. However, Zach did not mind. He still replied with a smile. I dare not, I dare not. I have touched the shadow of my ancestors. I just want to do something serious. Sean did not see such an honest young man often. His impression of Zach was only slightly better, and it was not as piercing as before. After that, Sean did not enter the neighborhood. He started chatting with Zach at the door. About Director Marquez wanting to build a hydrogen-powered car. I roughly know about it, but what I don't understand is, since Director Marquez wants to build a car, why must he choose our side? Zach replied, because you are a man who can't be helped up. Zach's words made Carson, who was standing beside him, tremble in fear. He was not here to discuss matters, but he was here to find trouble, all right? When Sean heard this, his face turned pale. It seems like Mr. Marquez has decided to give us a hand. Zach replied, I dare not say. We will profit from it, and we will benefit from it. Sean sneered. Director Marquez is really bold. He can have such vast ambitions at such a young age. Zach smiled. Then you might as well say that I am young and frivolous. Sean did not say anything. At this time, not saying anything was naturally tact acquiescence. However, Zach didn't want him to shut up just like that, so he continued. But I have always thought that even if you are arrogant, you still have the right to be arrogant. The hydrogen power system in my hand is my capital. The research and development funds and team in my hands are also my capital. You just asked me why I chose you guys, and I also told you the reason. Because you guys are not able to support the old ways. This isn't meant to be said, but it is said by countless netizens on the internet. It's said by countless citizens. I am only in my 20s this year, but I have even heard of your company's brand. This shows how influential this brand is. However, your company's products have been hard to convince people to buy this year. How many cars has your company produced these years? What kinds of cars are each imitation? I don't need to explain this, do I? I'm crazy because I have the world's most advanced power system technology. But where did your pride come from? Was it through hard work, or were you only able to gain your reputation because your brand lasted so long? Surely, a company like yours must have a strong reputation behind it. Zach's words were quite impolite. It made Sean, the old man, blush and turn pale. The company had indeed developed some new things, but as far as building cars were concerned, they had undoubtedly failed. The market did not pay attention to the manufacturer that could not keep up with the new and ever-growing demands of a prosperous society. The market paid attention to the people making waves in the industry, innovations, and setting themselves up to be the best in the business. People that could see potential and took the opportunities to thrust themselves further into the limelight. Seeing that Sean could not speak, Carson felt bad. This boss was really too awesome. He went to the door to talk business and fiercely spoke of his conviction, directly showing them until they were shameless. What business were they to talk about? However, Zach ignored him and continued. To tell you the truth, I don't need money to build a car. nor do I need a partner. If you gave me 5 years, I can beat you up in the car industry and snatch all your joint investments. The reason why I found your company is because I lack time. I don't want to wait that long. Secondly, I'm from a small town, and I don't want to work with other companies that I don't know of. Zach was very arrogant. Not only was he arrogant, but this young man was also very arrogant in Sean's eyes. However, Sean liked this kind of arrogance because Zach wasn't arrogant by himself. With the current power system in Zach's hands, it was indeed possible to make a perfect hydrogen energy car, and it was more advanced than any other country. It was easier to use, and the energy consumption was low, so the cost of using the car was lower. How could Zach not be crazy about such a good car? Good kid! You really are arrogant! I like your arrogance. Come, let's go home and chat. Episode 276. You again? Sean was extremely happy. He initially thought that Zach was here to circle the idea of money, but it seemed like that wasn't the case. No one would use this kind of attitude if all they wanted to do was turn a profit. Only those who really wanted to build a good car would say that. That was why he was the one who was humiliated just now. He was the one who was so happy that he wanted to jump up and down. Sean pulled Zach and walked into the neighborhood. Even Carson was ignored. More importantly, he had become a good person after the argument, but his support had been ignored. He felt extremely depressed. However, what Zach said just now really made his blood boil. His whole body was filled with energy. He even felt proud that he was a car man. It felt like a car had to be built, and Zach wouldn't take no for an answer. He looked at Zach's back as he left. He felt that following such a crazy boss to work, he was energetic and had endless energy all over his body. Even if he was tired to death at work, he was willing to do anything. In fact, Zach's back was also covered in cold sweat. He had also made a gamble. Facing this kind of old man who had been in the business industry for many years, it was useless to talk about things with empty words. Businessmen only believed in benefits. There was a type of businessman who not only believed in benefits, but also feelings, such as Sean. Now that he had retired, he was thinking about how to develop the automotive industry. After all, he was an avid lover of the industry and wanted to see how far it could go. Zach had to bet on this. That was why he dared to stab Sean in the heart in such an unusual way. He wanted to get straight to the point. The facts proved that although the process was dangerous, he had opened the path correctly. It was very direct and effective. Sean excitedly pulled Zach's hand and went through the greenery in the neighborhood to return home. When the door was opened, Sean said to Zach, "I am already old. Tonight, we are just discussing privately. Please forgive me." This was already very good. It made Zach overjoyed. Didn't they come to find Sean just to hope that he could pull strings? Then many thanks to you. In the future, there will definitely be a great deal of rewards. You will be remembered well. No need, no need. Sean waved his hand to indicate that he did not need it, but his mouth could not close. He was pondering the idea, remembered well for his actions now. The thought was intoxicating, especially if that new car was really as powerful as he had imagined. Then this conversation will be recorded in the history books and change the world. Very happily, Sean opened the door and called Zach into the house. However, just as Zach entered the house, he saw a pair of black high heels on the floor. The patterns on them were quite familiar. In the next moment, a very familiar voice asked, "Dad, who are you talking to?" "Ha ha! I brought a young man back for you. He's your matchmaker. But it's not a matchmaker for the two of you, it's a matchmaker for the two of your companies," Sean said excitedly. But Zach was not in the mood to listen. He pondered. Why did that sound so familiar to Luna's voice? When the sound of footsteps and slippers came over, Zach saw the person clearly. She was wearing a pair of shorts. revealing 2 snow-white long legs, and wore a large and loose t-shirt with a sheep print on it. It was still difficult to cover up her hot figure, especially that beautiful face. Even if she wore a pair of myopic eyes, it would only increase her charm. This woman, if she wasn't Luna, who else could she be? Zack was stunned, and so was Luna. Then the two of them asked each other at the same time, "Why are you here?" Sean was originally happy, but when he heard this, he was also stunned. "Do you two know each other?" Luna thought in her heart, more than just know each other. Fortunately, Zack timely explained, "Sir, earlier I went to the store to pick up a QZL5. It was Director Luna who received it." Luna quickly agreed with this reason. That is the gist of it. What she did not say was that it could only be like this. She could not say anything else. Sean suddenly realized, "So it's like this! That's fate! Quick, take a seat!" Sean then whispered to Luna, "A guest is here! It's too rude of you to dress like this!" Luna was speechless. She muttered as she went back to her room to change her clothes. "You did not tell me that there would be people in the house." Zack suddenly realized that Sean must have had an idea at the last minute and deliberately waited at the entrance of the neighborhood. It was normal to talk about things that were inappropriate or not. They just needed to talk at the door. They did not need to go home and sit. Tonight was the time when they were having a temporary discussion. They were excited, so they brought Zack to their home.